Mark, as always, good to see you. And thanks for making a bit of time to come and have a chat with me. I always appreciate that because I know you've been busy. Let's kick off with something that a lot of people will find interesting. You don't believe that it necessarily requires a lot of funding to build a tech business. I mean, a lot of people think the opposite. They think that the best way to build tech business is to get loads of other people's money and spend it on what you do. I mean, tell us why you think that way.
Well, let's look at history. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure talking to you. But let's look at history. Steve Jobs, where did he start Apple?
In a
It
garage.
was in a garage, yeah. Or the two founders of Google, now Alphabet. Sure, they were grad students from Stanford University, but they started it in a garage. It's what you really need is a good idea. That is the basis to everything. You need a good idea. And then instead of going out and finding, people to own your soul, talk to your family. Get some family support. Talk to your parents, okay? And or a spouse and say, I've got this really great idea. I think it can go forward. And then just do it. And if it works, it will grow on itself.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, my company, DPI Showcase Websites, we are 21 years old and we're 100% bootstrap. I don't have investors. If I need to make a decision, I just look in the mirror and say, Mark, yes or no.
Yeah, no, I totally get that logic. It allows you to get on with doing what you do best, doesn't it, really, without having to negotiate with somebody else. So I can see that logic entirely. I mean, a lot of other people think though that you will inevitably need funding. I mean, you've demonstrated that after over 20 odd years, you don't need to bring funding. I mean, take Google, the one of the examples is they brought funding in, didn't they? I mean, are you saying that people do not need funding at any point or just at the beginning?
Just in the beginning, first you need to really get your product going. You
Mm.
really need to have a good idea. And if at some point you find that your product is not viable, fine, scratch it and then go do something else.
Yeah,
Come up with another product. There is nothing wrong with trying something, having it fail, and then trying something else. The old famous example is, how many light bulbs did Thomas Edison,
yeah, yeah,
work on before he created the one that worked?
yeah. Yeah.
We
So
don't.
in terms of your business, I mean, you've not taken funding. You've been at it 20 odd years. I mean, you've built a very successful business. I mean, when you started out, what was it you wanted to achieve? I mean, if you go back to the beginning, what was it you were trying to do?
So I'm an evolutionary byproduct of evolution. I have changed throughout the years. I graduated from college with a degree in marketing and commercial photography. So I did commercial photography and then technology changed. So I said, all right, I need to get out of this. So I opened an ad agency and I was doing radio commercials. Remember
Oh,
radio?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Remember driving in your car listening to FM and then, you come to your office and you're humming a tune and then you check your answering machine and life was simple. I was doing newspaper ads. Remember newspaper? They got thrown at your
Yeah,
door every morning.
yeah.
And that changed. So we started doing product development. And then we opened a digital printing company as that technology changed. And then one day I was at a trade show for realtors because we did a lot of mailings for realtors. And this young guy comes by and he goes, I've got this website product for realtors. You want to help me market it? And I said to Al, who was my salesman, I said, Al, watch the booth. And the two of us sat down and came up with a deal. And we spent 6 months tearing his product apart because he's tech, I'm marketing. And then what I did was I transitioned out of printing, where several years later I sold a printing company, and then I went straight into website. So I had the fortune of being able to use the cash flow from one business to transition into another one. which made it a lot easier.
And let me ask you, I mean, because this is always an interesting thing. It's I mean, the phrase people use at the moment is to pivot, is to move from one direction to another direction. I mean, I always think it's interesting. People say, "Oh, yeah, I pivoted. I was doing this, and I decided to do it." How did you know this was the right thing? I mean, if you think back, because it obviously was. How did you know at that point? Did you think there was a lot of risk involved?
So, for example, let's go to the middle of what I used to do. We did product development and collateral materials, catalogs and things like that. When we started, I had two brothers who were my partners. They were the creative. I was the account person. So there were three profit centers in our business. First, there was the design, and then we had to make color separations, CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black,
Yeah.
in order to make the printing plates in order to print it. So that was fine. And then all of a sudden they went from the film to direct to plate. They use lasers
Yeah.
to etch the printing plates. So now all of a sudden one of our profit centers had disappeared. Then we had some contracts with some big catalogs and things, and we'd have like four or five different printers come to us and say, "Hey, Mark, give me the business," and I would always choose one. Well, the other three were pissed off, so they wrote it in their calendar. They knew, okay, next year at this time, we're going to go direct to Mark's client and say, you know what, just give us, just take the creative from Mark and give us that, and we'll give you a good discount on the printing. So now all of a sudden, the second profit center was disappearing. So you don't need to have a hammer hit you in the head to realize that, okay, time to
Yeah.
change, time for an evolutionary change.
Yeah. And there's one of my favorite sayings is that, um, what cannot be avoided must be welcomed. And lots of these kind of trends, there's nothing you can do. But it's rather like AI now. I mean, it's not going to go away just because you don't like it. So if, what cannot be avoided must be welcomed. You have to kind of lean into these things, I think, don't you?
Well, my favorite saying is the only constant is change.
Yeah.
And for example, we've been doing these websites for realtors for 21 years. And about 8 years ago, everything needed to be more mobile friendly. So instead of trying to patch up the software that we had, we invested and we redid the software from scratch because it needed to be done.
Sure.
And then that took 9 months, and then we spent another 6 months transferring all our clients from the old system into the new system. And it had to be done, and it put us on a new platform that had a lot more features. And every year we keep adding more and more different features in order to keep ourselves relevant.
Okay.
So AI is the latest one. We added our first AI product in April, and it's been doing really well. It's for getting leads for realtors and brokers. And now we're looking into another AI product that will probably start working on the end of November and launch probably sometime in January.
Mm. And you strike me as somebody that's not afraid of experimenting, of trying stuff out, of seeing what works. Is that fair?
That's more than fair. It's true. I have had some products that I've created that just died on the vine. Like we did this app, and I realized that no one wants to pay for apps. Everyone wants apps for free.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, lesson learned, but now I am an experienced person in creating apps. With the team that we have, we are we are able to write any software. If you need software created, we can do it. I have the team behind me, we can do anything. My guys, located in India. It's out of a big company in India. And I say to them, I want to do this, and they go, okay, and they get it done.
Mm.
So, for example, our Leads.ai product gets seller leads. In real estate, there's two parts of the business, there's buyers and sellers.
Mm.
Zillow and other big companies like that, they concentrate on buyers. They get realtors leads for people who might buy. But there's an old saying in the real estate industry, buyers are liars, listings last.
Mm.
So what our leads product does is it uses AI technology to see people who are online searching, and we try and find you sellers to get listings. Now, at the same time, we had created another product for property search for buyers. And basically, I put that on the shelf and it's just sitting there. It's online, it's working, but I am not promoting it because it would take a lot of dollars in order to compete against Zillow or
Mm.
some of the other big players out there. For example, there's this one gentleman, he's a billionaire, and he cornered the market on commercial real estate, office buildings and
Yeah,
things like that.
yeah.
And he made a lot of money. And then he saw the grass, he thought the grass was greener on the other side of the fence. So he bought homes.com to compete against Zillow and realtor.com. And now he's spending a ton of money trying to create market share. He's all over television
Mm.
and that's not cheap. So I don't know if he's making a profit there. I'm not privy to that. But that is a market that I don't think I can jump into.
Sure.
Give you another example. Rocket Mortgage. So mortgage company, really, really big.
Yeah.
And they started their own website called rocket.com in order for people to do property searches, buyers.
Mhm.
And what it did was it was a funnel to get them leads for their mortgage business. And then now they went out and they purchased a large brokerage in order to solidify what they're doing. But there, it's just a company that looks to grow vertical to support their main product. It's not someone trying to compete against Zillow for just leads.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the thing about whether products work or they don't work, it can be quite surprising. I mean, sometimes they do and you think they're not going to, and they do, and sometimes you think that's going to be a winner and it isn't. And I mean, well, the effect of that, certainly in my experience, is that it can make leading a business like a bit of a roller coaster. You're never quite sure what you're going to come into in the morning. What is it about this business that kind of gets you up in the morning, gets you out there riding the roller coaster? Because you've been at it 20 years. I mean, which is an impressive length of time, I think. I mean, what is it that motivates you?
I'm having fun.
Right.
I'm really having fun. Um, I work with programmers and I do that at 5 in the morning. Located in Miami Beach. They're in India, so I have to be up at 5 in the morning to talk to them. Sometimes I'm up at 2 in the morning giving them instructions, so this way they do it, have it done. And then I work with realtors all day long. I teach marketing classes to realtors, which is really rewarding because then you have students come back and go, "Wow, Mark, that was a really great thing. It got my business going. Thank you."
Yeah,
So, but I'm having fun. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and it keeps my mind, the creativity in my mind going.
sure, sure. And I mean, the other thing that's interesting about that is, I mean, you're enjoying it, which is great to hear. How do you keep a team? How do you keep your team motivated? Because I mean, it's one thing for a business owner to be motivated because there's a lot of benefits to that, aren't there? It's not necessarily the same for staff, is it? But you need a team that performs effectively. I mean, how do you manage that tension?
It's really hard because we all work remote, or remotely. Um, so it's communication is the key, and then also being there when there's a problem. For example, I have a team in Miami, and every morning I speak to each and every one of them. We have a little mini production meeting to make sure everyone's on track. And then every once in a while, if it's someone's birthday or if you just feel like, they did something really well, you send them a gift card or something. And, you know, people are happy. And then as long as you treat people well, they will treat you well. You know, you can't micromanage and then just be an ogre because that just doesn't work.
Sure, sure. I mean, on the flip side to that, what are the sorts of things that keep you awake at night? I mean, managing a team, particularly remotely, is hard. You know, I always think there's lots of stuff to worry about sitting below the surface there. I mean, what are the sorts of things that keep you awake at night in that around that?
So I never stop thinking about growth. Right now, I'm trying to put together a program where to do consolidation to purchase some of my competitors around the country in order to gain market share. I mean, it's not a novel idea. You know, people do it all the time. There's one company, Compass Realty, that they've been buying up small and medium-sized brokerages in order to gain market share. Um, the biggest challenge there is funding,
Mm,
finding the dollars to do that. So the past few months, I have been working on trying to go after venture capital firms or private equity firms in order to find the funding in order to go purchase about, nine or 10 of my competitors around the country. So that's not easy. The challenge I have is, what I do is not sexy. AI is sexy, but what I do is tried and true, and so I'm constantly trying different methods in order to approach these investors in order to find the funding to do that.
mm. I mean, the investment environment, certainly here in the UK, is pretty difficult at the moment. Is the same sort of thing happening in the US? I mean, we here in the UK that things are a lot easier in the US. Is that your perspective on that?
It's a matter of timing, and right now the timing is not good. Um, so I talk to people in the PE, private equity world, and basically they're all sitting on cash. They're sitting
Mm,
on money. They're waiting because, like for instance, yesterday I watched a 60 Minutes, an interview with a an economic reporter who says that we are in a bubble
mm.
and
Because it's
that
caused by AI. I mean, that's what people are saying, isn't it? The bubble's caused by AI.
exactly we saw it in 1998, the tech-com bomb or the tech bomb.
Mm,
So what happened was back then, a lot of companies that were people had invested in just disappeared. They were just not viable or they were ahead of their time. Like, for example, diapers.com. Go online and buy diapers and have them delivered. So back then, 25, 30 years ago, that was unheard of. Today, you just go to amazon.com and yeah, it's very commonplace to do that thing. We've changed as a society. So right now with AI, you have a lot of companies that are being invested in, and at some point they have to prove themselves profitable, and they haven't done that yet. So I think it was Robert Sorkin who was being interviewed, and he said the amount of money that's being invested and the height of the stock market means one or two things. Either we are in an economy that is doing like so well that it warrants it, or we're just over leveraged
yeah,
and it needs a correction.
yeah.
And
Yeah, and
his
it'd be
opinion,
interesting to see how that plays out in the next few months because it's. I mean, I've heard people talking about that as well, and it's very difficult to predict these things, isn't it? I mean, the market can be unreasonable for longer than you can stay in the market sometimes. So it could be a tricky few years. I mean, on that note, I mean, has there anything, as because you've been a CEO for a long time, have you ever had a situation where something has come along that has really surprised you and you thought, oh my God, I wasn't expecting that to happen. Have you had any of those kind of things happen?
sure. So it was about 3 years ago, 2 years ago, they came out with Web3,
Mm,
blockchain technology. And it was like, that's it. It's going to change the world. We all need to get on blockchain. And my team and I, we scratched our heads and we tried to figure out, what is it we need to do and where do we need to go? And then it fizzled. a lot of the big corporations who were investing in it said, "Wait a minute. Why are we doing this? Web 2 works perfectly fine. We do not need to go to Web 3." So that whole thing just kind of fizzled. And I think you're going to see the same thing happen with AI. The technology will not disappear, but there are certain tools that are out there that people think are viable are just not. And those are the ones that are going to disappear,
Mm.
and that's going to warrant the correction.
Yeah, I
But the
mean it's
technology,
interesting. It's interesting you say that. I mean the the conventional wisdom is we overestimate what new technology will deliver in the short term, but we underestimate its impact in the long term. I mean, it seems to me that's what's happening at the moment. There's a lot of hype about something, um, which probably won't be realized, but it will drive lots of changes in the longer term. I mean, both blockchain and I think, will have that impact.
sure. I mean, what's going on now is pretty interesting. You know, consumer habits or consumer demand
Mm,
drives everything. So now the conversation that I have with a lot of people is some people, instead of going to Google to do a search, are going to ChatGPT to do a search.
mm,
Now, I remember when Google first came out, I mean, the big search engines were Netscape and Yahoo,
mm,
and Google just, you know, kicked their butts. It was just, it worked and it was much better and it was cleaner and they grew. And you know that you can't stay on top forever. Eventually, something else will replace you. So now all of a sudden we have this dynamic going on between ChatGPT and Google, and it's based on people's behaviors
mm.
as to, you know, how they do searches online. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's a very good example that I think because you wouldn't necessarily predict that people would use AI to search. I mean, you predict fairly. It's not difficult to guess that people would use it to answer questions. How do I do this? Or but use it as a search engine. I mean, it's an interesting take on people just using the product in ways that I wouldn't perhaps have thought of.
So, for example, I was just tooling around because that's what I do. And I went to ChatGPT and I wrote, list all the K to 12, you know, kindergarten to 12th grade schools. And I put it in a Coral Gables, Florida, which is a city near here, a town. And it gave me a list and it was great. So if you did the same thing in Google, you won't get the same answer.
Yeah.
But it's early in the game. And what you don't have on ChatGPT are ads.
Mm,
And eventually they are going to have to show a profit and they're going to probably have to show ads. Facebook was another prime example. When they first started,
mm,
they really stayed away from the ads. They wanted to be like cool and you know we're hip, you know. And now all of a sudden you scroll on your timeline in Facebook and every third post is an ad.
mm.
So eventually, you know, the shareholders want their return.
Yeah. Same
So
on LinkedIn, actually. Same sort of thing.
same on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But just to pick up that point about communication, I mean, what's your, I mean, you communicate, I mean, you have a technology-based product that you sell to companies. What's your take on, I mean, obviously you come from a marketing background, what's your take on the best way to communicate that with people? I've always felt that communicating about technologies can be tricky because people don't necessarily understand how it works. I mean, what's your take on those kind of communication issues?
So we do a lot of marketing. We try a lot of different things. We throw as much against the wall as we can.
Right.
You know, back in the day, okay, when I was doing retail advertising, I had one client who was a cellular telephone distributor. That was when cellular telephones were mounted in your car, you
Those were
know,
the days.
you know. And I used to say to him, do me a favor when a client comes in, ask them where they heard of us. So we would be doing newspaper advertising, and they would come in and say, "Oh, we saw you on we heard you on radio." And it's like, okay. Even on our website, when you sign up, there's a field in the bottom that says, "How did you hear from us about us?"
Mm.
And then people will say things that I'm going, okay, that's interesting because we're not doing that. I think it was John Wrigley who the chewing gum
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
manufacturer, um, who said 50% of all advertising is wasted, but we just don't know which 50%.
yeah. And would you agree with that, or do you feel because that's your area, would you have a better, a more accurate fix on that?
So I have a debate with one of my team members, we're where to put advertising dollars, and basically we advertise in Google.
Right.
And it's her opinion that, Google is kind of like falling by the wayside. And my attitude is it also creates awareness.
Mm.
And awareness it may not be the determining factor when someone signs up with you, but when they do want to sign up, they say, "Oh yeah, DPI, I've heard of them." So yeah, you need to create awareness. You have to have brand visibility, and it needs to be constant.
Yeah. And have you, I mean, you may not want to answer this question, but have you ever had any really big comms failures, things that have completely gone wrong?
Yeah, I have. Like I said, I was looking to get some VC dollars to help with my program in expanding or purchasing some of my competitors. And I hired an expert to come in and help me organize and all that. And at the end of the day, it just didn't quite work out.
Mm.
And then I hired a company who had all the email addresses to all the VC companies, and they were emailing hundreds of these people every week, and that didn't work out either. So yeah, but regrets, I've had a few. Okay.
Like the
Uh,
song.
yes.
Yeah. And you touched earlier on about your team. I mean, obviously you've got a remote team. I mean, it's very difficult to make real progress without getting a team on board. I mean, what's your take on getting a great team on board and pointing in the right direction? I mean, how do you approach that?
So you have to realize that you have strengths and weaknesses. So, for example, I'm a marketing person.
Hmm.
I need web designers because you asked me to, I can't even draw a crooked line, okay? That's how bad I am when it comes to design, but I know what works and what doesn't work. Or I have coders, programmers. You asked me to write a line of code. I couldn't do that if my life depended on it. We were in one production meeting with the programmers, and they brought up the code to look at it, and I'm like, whatever. So you realize what your strengths are and what your weaknesses and where you need to fill in, and then you need people around you to do that. You reach a certain point, which I think is successful, is when things happen for the positive that you didn't have to lift a finger or make a decision on. And that's a good thing. You say, wow, the system is working.
Mm.
For example, we have a database of a few thousand new developments. We have, condo buildings and things like that here, and we put those into our system with the floor plans. So our clients, the realtors' clients, the buyers can go onto their website to, read about a building. And every once in a while, I'll get an email saying promoting a certain building, and I go, "Wow, I wonder if we have that in our system." And I go into the system and boom, there it is. And I'm like, when did that happen? Which
Mm.
is a good thing. When
Mm.
you have a good team around you, then things start to happen.
Yeah. Let me just pick that point up because it's a really interesting area that. I mean, because what you're saying is you play to your strengths, so you do the things that you're good at, and then you delegate or bring people in to do the things that you're perhaps not so good at. And I agree with that. I mean, I think that's a smart strategy, focusing on the stuff that you do well. But it's easier to say than do, partly because often people aren't totally clear on what they're good at, what they're not so good at. I mean, that self-awareness can be difficult to develop. And one of the great things about being old is that you can't help but develop it over time. But what's your take on how the best way for perhaps a rookie CEO, how should they go about working out their strengths and weaknesses? What would your view of that be?
Sure, I read a great book about 10 years ago. It's called Built to Last.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And, they're talking about how to take a small company and make it larger. And the next thing you know, they're talking about McDonald's. And I'm like going, what do I have to do with McDonald's? And then they start talking about how they have an operations manual
Mm,
where they have set procedures, where they wrote things down as to
yeah,
how to do things, how to produce things. And if you create those systems and those methods and those protocols, you'll succeed. If you don't, then no one has any clear direction and it falls apart. And then you have to look at your exit strategy. One day someone may come to you and say, I want to buy your company. So in my case, are they buying DPI or are they buying Mark's company? And you have to make it to where they are buying DPI. So if you take Mark out of the equation,
yeah,
basically the company will still move forward.
yeah. I mean, McDonald's is a really interesting example, I think, because I mean, I've been into McDonald's all over the world, and they're extraordinarily consistent,
Yeah.
which is in and of itself is impressive. The fact that they can do the same thing everywhere, that is much more difficult than people think. The other thing I think is interesting is that it's essentially run by pretty young people. I mean, not everyone, but most of the people in McDonald's are pretty young. They're not people that have been in business for 30 or 40 years. They're essentially fairly young people, which tells you that they must have developed an extraordinarily good system. And it's interesting you flag up that point about creating, operating standards, operating manuals and stuff, because you're absolutely right. That's how you communicate what needs to be done, isn't it?
You know, I like to surround myself by young thinking people.
Mm,
Give you an example. We had the same logo, the DPI logo, for 20 years, 20 more than that, okay? And I liked that logo. It was like a comfortable pair of shoes, I liked it. It was great.
mm,
And this is one young lady that's part of the team, and she said, Mark, we have to change the logo. No, it's fine. no, Mark. So, we had this conversation for like a month, and I said, fine, let's explore it. First I said to her, well, look at these companies. Like, look at KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Look at their logo. And she's, oh, yeah. And then she brought up a history of their logo, and it had changed over
has
time.
evolved, doesn't it? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I said, all right, fine. And then we hired an artist, a logo artist, and then we went through the process of changing the logo. And she was right. It needed a new look. It needed to be freshened up. And the comments that we get are really good about it.
Mm,
So yeah, you need to surround yourself with young people who look at things differently or are hip on new technologies and where they're going. That's why we're constantly having conversations about AI right now.
mm,
And I'm not the kind of person to leap without looking. So we're starting to develop AI products, but we're doing it with clear mind that it will benefit our clients. That is something that will help them, and not something that we think, oh wow, this is cool and groovy, and then all of a sudden, you spend 6 months developing something and no one wants it.
yeah, Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really important discipline, actually. That thing about doing stuff that helps your clients. If you stick with that, you can't go far wrong, in my view. But I mean, just to pick up that point. I mean, in terms of building a business, I mean, what is it that you would say that gives you an edge? What are the distinctive capabilities that you have that give you an edge over your competitors? Because it's a competitive market, the space that you're in, I think.
So there's a few things. First of all is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, it's that triangle,
Hmm.
and it talks about, you know, as a person, your needs, and on the bottom it's like food and water, and then it's
Yeah,
shelter and things like that. So when you equate that or you to business, if you're a salesperson, what do you need? And you need a business card. And then you also need a website. So that's really on the bottom rung as to what you need, which is good because people will spend money for that. As you start to develop these niche products that are higher up on the rung, if you're on the third rung,
yeah.
all of a sudden the number of people who need your product and the dollars available for that product are less.
Mm,
For example, I go to these real estate conferences, and they have this tech challenge where they have a table on the stage with three judges, and then one by one, these like tech people come up, and they have like 2 minutes to present their product, and then they get a few questions, and then they have a vote as to which one is the most innovative one. And some of these ideas, I just scratch my head. I'm going, who created this idea and who actually funded this? This is like
yes.
so esoteric. It's like
Yeah.
I don't understand this. So you really have to have something that is universal that people need. The other thing is you have to be realistic as to who your clients are and in the tech business, what their capabilities are. For example, we work with realtors, and a lot of realtors, not all of them, but a lot of realtors are not tech people. They're salespeople.
Mm,
They like to be on the phone. They like to show, you know, real estate. They like to, you know, talk to their clients and work the deal out, work both sides and stuff, and, you know, get things done. But if you ask them to go and, you know, set up a CRM, a client management system, they're going to scratch their heads and go,
mm,
what?
mm,
So what we do is whenever we create something, we say, how can we automate this? Knowing that our clients are not tech people. For example, we have this great product. This is one of those products where you thought it was just like, oh, yeah, that's cool. And all of a sudden, people are signing up because of this product. We automatically blog for our clients. We put a blog article on their website every day. It's, you know, we get it from the industry, you know, from the tabloids, the online tabloids. And then we take that article and we post it on their Facebook and LinkedIn pages automatically with the link back to the website. And then every Monday, we repurpose the previous week's blog articles and turn it into an e-newsletter email that goes out to all the clients in their CRM, their client management system. And the realtor doesn't have to lift a finger. And they're going, wow, you're doing all that? So I don't have to go to Facebook and LinkedIn and post every day. You're doing it for me? That's cool.
mm.
I'm going, yeah. And that's all included in the monthly hosting. There's like no extra fee for that.
Yeah. And that's a real, I mean, I always think of businesses as either being painkillers or vitamin pills, things that are good to have, but don't necessarily resolve it. But what you've just described is something that resolves a real pain for people, isn't it? Because everyone knows they've got to engage with customers, but it's a pain in the neck to do it. So, I mean, I can see why that's powerful. What would you say is the most important thing that you've learned about building a business? I mean, you've been at it a while. What would you say is the number one thing that's had an impact, that has impacted?
Sure. So it's actually two, if I may.
Right.
The first thing is don't be afraid of experimentation.
Mm.
And if it doesn't work, that's okay. Because we have created certain tools, certain products that I thought were good, and then all of a sudden when we put it into practice, we go, well, you know, that really didn't work. And that's fine. You just, you know, you scratch it and you move on. The second thing is you need family support. So I'm an experimenter. I'm always trying different things, and I'm always, I'm a salesperson, so I'm always talking it up with my family. Oh yeah, we're doing this and we're doing that, and we're doing. And the one thing my family knows is never to say, "Well, we knew that wouldn't work." That's really demoralizing if you have someone
Yeah.
in your home team going, "Yeah, wow." Um, So it's those two things. Don't be afraid to experiment, scrap, and start over. And then you need people behind you to say, okay, keep moving, move
Sure.
it along.
And what would you say? I mean, it's interesting that you describe that. What would you say that's the DNA of your business, those two things? I mean, what would be the DNA of how you do things?
So one of the things that we really do well is customer support. We're in a time where people, not just tech companies, but lots of companies don't like to provide customer support.
Mm.
And people need help. Plus they don't have time to chase you. For example, I had something I need to work on with one of my vendors. This is someone I'm paying money to for a service. So I go to the website and there's a little, thing there that says chat. All right, cool. I don't mind chatting with someone and this way I can do it and do something else at the same time. It turned out to be one of these AI chatbots,
Mm.
which its sole purpose was to not let me talk to a person. And it took me between 20 minutes and a half hour of my precious time to finally get a real person to assist me. And then when they did assist me, it took 5 minutes to solve the issue.
Mm.
So support is really important. There's one large tech company, social media company, that has like zero customer support. And I talk to people all the time going, I got kicked off this platform. What do I do? And I'm like, I don't know. They have no support. And then you 180 degrees difference, you look at Google, they have amazing customer support. Here's one of the largest tech companies around, and I advertise on there, and they chase me to make sure that my ad is working properly.
Mm. I mean, I
So
think it's interesting you say that. I mean, I think I would say one of the reasons Google's successful is because they're very good at that, aren't they? And they leave a lot of their competitors for dust, really. Let me just ask you about that point, though. I mean, from your perspective, what does a great customer look like to you?
so in real estate, you have to know your niche,
Mm.
okay? In real estate, you have different types of realtors. 85% of all realtors sell one or less house a year. They're
Wow.
part-timers.
Wow,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah,
Wow.
they're part-timers, they keep their license active because, a friend will call them up and say, "Hey, I need to buy something or I need to rent something or help me sell my house," or something like that. And they'll go and they'll do one or two deals a year and they earn themselves, like 10, $20,000 a year. And they're happy because it pays for, Johnny's braces or it pays for summer camp or something like that, or vacation money.
Mm.
And they typically have a spouse who is, has the full-time job. So that's 85%. Then you have about 3% who are the high-end realtors. These are they wear the fancy clothes and they have the fancy, sunglasses and, they drive the nice cars and they're doing the million-dollar deals. They are not my client. They are very high maintenance. And I'm like, no, I don't want them. So that leaves me about 12% in the middle, which are either hardworking realtors who, make themselves a nice living, that's what they do, or you have independent brokers
Mm.
who own their own brokerage. Some of them have no agents. They just work by themselves and they're as happy as can be. Others will have 5, 10 agents that work under them. And they are a good niche. That's what we go after. And we give them a lot of tools and a lot of support in order to, keep their brokerage viable and keep it going from a tech standpoint.
And I mean, I was about to ask you about how you build relationships with clients. Is that the way? By giving them tools that are helpful to them I mean, what's your take on that kind of relationship building process? Is it purely about tech?
So first, you need a really good product.
Mm.
I'll give you an example. There's this one luxury brokerage near it's actually a national brokerage, and the managers in each office are recommending this website company to their people, and they charge about 150 to $200 a month for their service. And all of a sudden, I get referrals. People go, "Oh, what are you paying that money for?" Call DPI. It's just 69 a month, and our product looks the same and has more tools and better customer support. So, you have to have a good product. That's the bottom line.
Mm.
And there are things that you can do that are not expensive in order to keep your product viable. And that's what we do.
Okay. And let me ask you about going into new markets. I mean, you've been around for a long time. I mean, what's your take on shifting from where you are into a new market? I mean, what's your take on that process? Because there's a lot of risk
We're-
involved.
Yeah, we're trying to do that now, and it takes a lot of money to do that.
Yeah.
To give you an example, our Leads.ai product, which helps realtors find sellers, it's a perfectly good tool for mortgage brokers or insurance agents. So I'm starting to sign up mortgage brokers because they're always looking for leads. They're constantly looking for leads. That's what they do.
Mm.
And what we did was we came out with a really great product. It's $99 a month, includes the website, the CRM, and the leads. And all of a sudden, people are there's the word of mouth is starting to get out. They're starting to sign up. So it takes a lot of money and a lot of effort to create the awareness. The growth in that, I think, should be faster, but we're doing it organically since, you know, I don't have venture capitalists with deep pockets there to help me, do the marketing and stuff for that. But yeah, it is something you need to do, which is to go after new markets.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't, you end up stagnating, I think. That's
Yeah, we started as a regional company with Florida and Georgia, and now all of a sudden we're across the United States and we're into Canada, and that was done through marketing and creating awareness, and it works.
And I mean, let me just pick up that. One of the things that's interesting is that, I mean, doing business in Florida is different from doing business in Canada, but it's also different to doing business in LA, for example, isn't it? I mean, what's your take on the kind of cultural nuances of different parts of the world and working with different people that have different expectations and different ways of doing things and different kind of local business kind of, you know, ways of working? I mean, what's your take on handling all those things?
I love my clients from the Midwest. They're
Right,
all they're all calm, It's like someone hid the
right.
caffeine. They just, they're good, they're nice, and they just, they move along and they have good expectations and stuff. So I love those types of people. But yeah, you have to really know the geographic area. And then what we do is we change the designs of our websites based on where they're located.
Right.
So it looks more regional. So it's not just one template and that's it.
So it's about tailoring to
Yes.
specific geographical requirements. Yeah, I mean, I get that. Let me ask you, I mean, you're a success now. Um, what would you say your biggest mistake has been along the way, and what have you learned from it?
Oh, my biggest mistake. Oh my goodness. I don't know. I can't answer that. There's been like a lot of I've been very fortunate. There's been a lot of little mistakes, little things that I'm able to recover from. And I think that's because after doing something for so long, you get to tell, you get to know in advance when something is going to be bad or something is going to just turn out wrong.
Yeah.
And you try and avoid those things. And that just comes with experience.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting you said it because what you're also saying is take lots of small risks, which means you don't have to take big risks.
Right. So when I first started this tech business, meeting that gentleman who was a programmer and then putting in the time and dollars,
Mm.
that was a big risk. Fortunately, I had a printing company that was giving me the cash flow to do that. We would travel the country, we would go to different trade shows. The market back then was brand new. People really weren't doing it, and we were trying to trailblaze to figure out our way. So that was a lot of investment. That was, a lot of time, and you don't know if you're going to succeed. Fortunately, we were on the right path. And fortunately, DPI is here, after 21 years, we're just, we're still plugging along.
Mm.
So, at some point, you have to take a risk. You have to burn the bridge behind you and say, this is where I'm going, and there's no turning back.
Mm. Scary moment.
Yeah, it is. But you have to have confidence in yourself, in your product, in your team, and also knowing that if you need to pivot, if you need to change, then basically you can do it and not worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say your biggest achievements are when you look back on that 20-year period? I mean, what are the things that really make you feel good?
So I have two boys.
Uh,
One of them is a surgeon.
oh
He's
wow.
a robotic surgeon. He does,
Wow.
his specialty are hernias. He works out of a hospital in the Bronx in New York. And they just bought, he and his wife, she's an attorney, they just bought a big house in New Jersey. My other son is a, tax lawyer. He went to law school and then he graduated. And I said, all right, you're getting one more year free. And I sent him to NYU, New York University, to get his degree in tax law, an LLM. And he's working for a private equity firm and he's doing well. And they graduated with no student debt.
Right. Okay. So that's your achievement you're most proud of, yeah?
And it was, one website at a time. Just, you keep your eye on the ball. And I said to them, I said, boys, you got your inheritance now because on my deathbed, I'm going to be spending my last dollar. So forget about it. It's a joke that we make all the time. So, yeah. And, if you work hard in business and if you do it right, then it affords you the luxuries to do things. Like, for example, in December, my wife and I were going with another couple. We're going to the Galapagos. We're going to go see the tortoises and all the other
The
wildlife.
iguanas and everything else. Yeah. Wow.
I live in Florida. Don't mention iguanas. We have them all over the place.
Okay, well, that sounds like a fun trip. And if you were to, thinking about your experience, if you were to offer one piece of advice to a rookie CEO, somebody just starting up, I mean, what would it be?
Make sure that your product is viable.
Hmm.
Make sure that you're low on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Make sure you're low on the low rung on there, that you're not too esoteric. And then make sure that it is something that your clients or your potential clients will value and use. If you can do that and if it's achievable, you're in good shape.
Yeah.
Give you an example of what happened with us. I told you about 8 years ago, we had to redo our software from scratch.
Mhm.
And we did it. And it was V1, version one. And it was okay, but not great. But we were able to launch. So we got it to a point where we're able to launch, able to get the cash flow going through it. And then what I did was I got on a plane to India to meet with my programmers in order to say, okay, great, we did this now. We need to change this and this and this. And so then, like a month later, we had V2 and then V3, and we just kept adding and changing and fixing and improving. So at some point, you need to get to market. At some point, you need to start cash flow, and then you need to become profitable. That's what you have to do.
Sure. And let me ask you a question that's not so much about your business, but about the industry that you're in. Because I mean, technology is a really quickly evolving industry. Well, it's constantly evolving. But I mean, what's your take on the way AI is going to shake down over the next few years? I mean, do you have a view about that? I know you've invested heavily in that area. I mean, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I spoke about this a couple of years ago at LA Tech Week. And basically, what I had said at the time was that it's going to be around, it's going to last. It's just not there yet, that it needs to evolve. It needs to change. There's three parts of AI. There's generative AI, which is I want a picture of, the president riding a horse. Okay, and boom, there it is, a picture of the president riding a horse. All right, and it just created it for you. Is it great? Probably not, but there it is. Um, then there's automation, which is a lot of what we do with AI. And then there's machine learning. It's kind of like the cyborgs, Arnold
Mm,
Schwarzenegger, the Terminator, machine learning. So there's different types of AI. There are certain products in AI which are going to die on the vine because they're just not practical.
mm,
Then there's others that I think are really cool that will survive. Give you one example. Let's say you need a portrait photograph of yourself, and you don't have time to go to a portrait photographer. You take There are apps where you pay them like, 30, $50, and you upload 3 or 4 snapshots of yourself that you did on your iPhone, and it will create a photo of yourself that looks like you were in a studio.
mm.
So that's pretty cool, but it's really simple technology, and now all of a sudden, the competition there is fierce.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure.
I don't know how profitable or that will become because of the competition. So we there are products in AI which I think consumers will hate. For example, we were at the Google conference in Las Vegas in April. It was me and 35,000 of my closest friends. And they
Must have been a good
wanted to,
party.
it was a big party. The keynote speech in the morning, the first day, is in a basketball arena with, about 25,000 seats. It's really, really, but the best part about it was they fed everyone lunch every day. And I was like, wow, this is great. And it was good food too.
Yeah.
Um, so they're trying to push their chatbot. So for example, like I talked before about how I went online with one of my vendors and I needed assistance, and there was an AI chatbot that was trying to keep me from talking to someone. I think consumers are going to reject that.
Mm.
I think consumers are going to say, wait a minute, I need service. I don't need some robot telling me or running me around in circles.
Yeah.
And there are going to be certain products in the AI world where business owners are going to go, yeah, that doesn't work. Right now, we have in the employment or unemployment sectors of our economy, you have a lot of college graduates who are having trouble finding jobs. And if we can get numbers out of our government, because right now our government's shut. Um, but if you looked at just that segment of college graduates, you'll see that they're really having trouble finding a job because a lot of business owners are going, well, maybe I don't need to hire someone. Maybe I could use AI to take care of that.
Mm.
And I think we're going to find that consumers at large are going to reject some of these products or just not use it. So we're going to see where that shakes out. What we do when we develop an AI product is we don't need to be first on the market. We have a wait and see where we look at what some other companies are doing or what some of our competitors are doing. And then we go and we create a product based on their results. So I may not be first to market, but I come in with a good version
Mm,
and then I keep the price where it's affordable for people.
mm. Yeah, no, I can see the logic of that. I mean, Mark, thank you for taking a bit of time to talk us through that. I mean, it's always interesting to hear from people that are working right at the cutting edge, about how these things are playing out. I mean, whichever way things go with AI, I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting few years, no doubt about that. So, thank you for giving us your take on that. One last thing, if people want to get hold of you, how do they reach you?
Sure, it's simple. Just go to my website, dpishowcase.com, dpishowcase.com. You'll see everything we do there. I teach marketing classes to realtors. There's a page on my website that says classes. You can join on Zoom. They're free. I teach twice a week.
Wow.
Also, there's a link to my YouTube channel, which has recordings of my classes and dozens of training videos. So dpishowcase.com, it's all there.
Fantastic. Mark, thanks for giving us some time. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and expertise. Much appreciated. See you soon.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Cheers, Mark. Bye bye.